What does it take for Hollywood to erase one of its brightest stars? Talent? Check. Oscar nominations? 3 of them. Iconic roles that defined a generation? Absolutely. So why did Debra Winger, a woman who clawed her way to the top, suddenly vanish at the peak of her career? Was it a scandal, a breakdown, or something far darker? The truth is, Hollywood didn't destroy Debra Winger. It simply refused to accept her. And her story begins not on a red carpet, but in a hospital bed at 17 years old, where doctors told her she'd never walk again. Debra Winger's life was a battle from the start. Born in 1955 as Mary to a conservative Jewish family, she was torn between tradition and the burning desire to perform. Her parents named her Debra after a Hollywood starlet, as if fate itself was pushing her toward the spotlight. But her family saw acting as a fantasy, until a freak accident at an amusement park changed everything. While working a summer job, she was thrown from a truck, suffering a brain hemorrhage that left her temporarily blind and paralyzed. Doctors warned she might never recover, but in those dark, silent days, Winger made a promise to herself. If I survive, I'm chasing my dream, no matter the cost. Miraculously, she regained her sight and mobility, defying every medical prediction. And with the stubbornness that would later define her career, she dropped out of college, moved to Hollywood, and began knocking on doors, only to face rejection after rejection. Studios saw her as too intense, too sharp-edged. But Winger wasn't there to be another pretty face. She was there to act, and when Hollywood finally gave her a chance, she didn't just take it, she ripped the door off its hinges. But here's the twist. That same fire that made her a star also made her an outcast. By the end of this video, you'll see the shocking moment Winger reappeared after 30 years, looking nothing like the Hollywood icon people remembered. Stick around, because what she did next will leave you speechless. Imagine being so talented that a director threatens to quit unless you're cast. That's exactly what happened with Debra Winger's first major role. After years of bit parts and forgettable films, she walked into the audition for 1980s urban Cowboy as an underdog. The studio wanted a bigger name, but director James Bridges took one look at Winger and saw something explosive, raw, untamed, energy that couldn't be faked. He fought for her, and when Urban Cowboy became a smash hit, Winger didn't just arrive in Hollywood, she announced herself like a thunderclap. Overnight, she became the actress every director wanted and every co-star feared. Winger's intensity wasn't just for the camera, it bled into every set she stepped onto. While filming An Officer and a Gentleman, her co-star Richard Gere called their chemistry non-existent. Behind the scenes, it was worse. Winger famously compared acting with Gere to performing opposite a brick wall, and their mutual disdain became Hollywood legend. Yet somehow, their on-screen tension created magic. The film earned her first Oscar nomination. But Hollywood wasn't ready for a woman who refused to play nice. When she clashed with Shirley MacLaine on terms of endearment, the feud turned vicious. MacLaine mocked her relentlessly, and Winger fired back in the most outrageous way possible by deliberately farting in MacLaine's presence mid-scene, later calling it my mark on the film. Shockingly, the movie became a classic, earning Winger her second Oscar nod. But the win went to MacLaine, who gloated, "I deserve this." This was the paradox of Debra Winger. The more Hollywood tried to break her, the harder she fought back. But what happens when even talent and defiance aren't enough? Because behind the scenes, Winger was battling something far bigger than egos, a system designed to crush women who didn't obey. And by the 1990s, she was running out of allies and patience. At the height of her fame in 1995, Debra Winger did the unthinkable. She walked away. No scandals, no farewell tour, just a single phone call to her agent. "I'm done." Overnight, one of Hollywood's most gifted actresses vanished. But why? The truth is darker than anyone guessed. Winger didn't leave because she failed. She left because she refused to play Hollywood's cruelest game, the one where brilliant women over 40 are tossed aside like used props. Roles dried up. Scripts insulted her intelligence. The industry that once begged for her talent now whispered she was too difficult, too old, too real. So she made them a promise. If you won't respect me, you won't have me. And with that, she was gone, moving to a farm in upstate New York, raising sheep, and vanishing so completely that fans started wondering, Did Hollywood kill Debra Winger? For 15 years, Winger became a ghost story, a cautionary tale whispered at parties. Directors claimed she was blacklisted. Former co-stars called her the one who got away. Then, in 2012, the impossible happened. Winger returned, not for a blockbuster, but for a tiny indie film. No fanfare, no apology. Just that same fiery glare that said, "I act when I want to." Critics lost their minds. Suddenly, the industry remembered what they'd thrown away, an actress who could outshine anyone with a single glance. Netflix came calling with The Ranch. Younger actors lined up to work with her, but Winger wasn't back for fame. She was back on her terms, older, wiser, and utterly unbroken. And that's when Hollywood learned the terrifying truth. You can't destroy a woman who refuses to be owned. Because while the industry tried to erase her, Debra Winger was busy becoming something far more dangerous. A legend who couldn't be controlled. Which makes you wonder, who's really winning now? In 2024, cameras caught a woman walking into a New York theater, silver-haired, no makeup, wearing thick librarian glasses. Then the whispers started. Oh my God, is that Debra Winger? The answer would send shockwaves through Hollywood, because this wasn't the glamorous Oscar nominee they remembered. This was something far more dangerous. A woman who had not only survived the industry's cruelty, but had thrived without its permission. At 69 years old, Winger wasn't chasing youth or begging for roles. She was free, and that freedom terrified Hollywood more than any tantrum she'd ever thrown on set. Winger's legacy isn't just in the films she left behind. It's in the cracks she put in Hollywood's glass ceiling. When Jennifer Lawrence demands equal pay, when Frances McDormand shouts inclusion riders, they're walking paths Winger blazed decades ago. She proved you could be talented and difficult, brilliant and uncompromising. Today, she acts only when projects excite her, like 2023's gritty crime drama Accused, where she stole scenes without breaking a sweat. But the real masterpiece? Her life. Married 28 years to Arliss Howard, living on that quiet farm, she's what Hollywood rarely allows its women to be, happy on their own terms. So the next time someone asks, what happened to Debra Winger? Tell them the truth. Nothing happened to her. She happened to Hollywood. And the industry still hasn't recovered. The year was 2024 when Hollywood received its most unexpected wake-up call. Cameras flashed outside a small New York theater, capturing a woman who moved through the crowd with quiet confidence. Silver curls framing her face, no trace of makeup, wearing thick-framed glasses and a simple black pantsuit. At first glance, she might have been mistaken for a distinguished literature professor. Then, the murmurs began spreading like wildfire. Wait, is that Debra Winger? The collective gasp from entertainment reporters said it all. This wasn't just a celebrity sighting, it was a reckoning. Because the woman walking through those doors wasn't the glamorous 1980s sex symbol Hollywood remembered. This was Debra Winger 3.0, a woman who had not only survived the industry's attempts to erase her, but had somehow emerged more powerful in her absence. At 69 years old, she wasn't playing by Hollywood's rules anymore. She wasn't even on the same playing field. And that terrified the establishment more than any of her legendary on-set battles ever had. What makes Winger's story so revolutionary isn't just that she walked away. It's what she did with that freedom. While Hollywood assumed she'd faded into obscurity, Winger had been quietly rewriting the rulebook for actresses of her generation. Her 2016 return in Netflix's The Ranch wasn't a comeback. It was a masterclass. As sharp-tongued matriarch Maggie Bennett, she demonstrated that women over 50 could be complex, funny, and fiercely compelling without catering to industry stereotypes about aging. Then came 2020's Kajillionaire, where her turn as a grifting mother proved she could outact performers half her age. Each role was carefully chosen, not for fame or paycheck, but for creative fulfillment, a luxury Hollywood rarely grants women past 40. Off-screen, her 28-year marriage to Arliss Howard became a quiet rebellion against Tinseltown's relationship. Carousel. While former co-stars cycled through divorces and rehab stints, Winger built a lasting partnership on a farm in upstate New York. No paparazzi, no tabloid drama, just real life. The true brilliance of Winger's second act lies in its timing. Her disappearance coincided with Hollywood's most shameful secret, the systematic erasure of talented women as they aged. In 2002, Rosanna Arquette's documentary Searching for Debra Winger exposed this ugly truth, using Winger's absence as a rallying cry. Actresses like Jane Fonda and Sharon Stone appeared on camera, detailing how the industry discarded them after 40. Without meaning to, Winger had become the poster child for a movement. By the time Me Too exploded in 2017, young actresses cited Winger as inspiration for walking away from toxic projects. When Frances McDormand demanded inclusion writers at the Oscars, she stood on shoulders Winger helped build. The ultimate irony? The woman Hollywood tried to forget had become impossible to ignore. Which brings us back to that stunning 2024 appearance. There was profound symbolism in Winger's silver hair and makeup-free face, a direct challenge to Hollywood's obsession with youth. Her outfit, that crisp button-down shirt and tailored blazer, wasn't just clothing, it was armor. This was a woman completely at peace with time's passage, radiating the kind of confidence that comes from living authentically. When asked why she left Hollywood all those years ago, her answer was characteristically blunt. I didn't leave. I graduated. The comment went viral, sparking debates about artistic integrity versus industry demands. Younger actresses flooded social media with tributes, calling her the original rebel and Hollywood's conscience. Meanwhile, studio executives squirmed because Winger's greatest role turned out to be playing herself, a woman who valued art over fame and found happiness outside the system's walls. Today, Winger's influence is everywhere. From Margot Robbie's production company championing female stories to Kristen Stewart's rejection of traditional Hollywood glamour. When asked about current projects, Winger smiles coyly. I act when it interests me, not when I'm told to. It's this refusal to conform that makes her 2020s resurgence so delicious. She pops up in unexpected places. A voice role in an indie to animated film, a scene-stealing cameo in a dark comedy, always on her own terms. The parts may be smaller, but the impact is seismic. Each appearance sends a clear message. Talent doesn't expire at 40. Women's stories don't stop being valuable after menopause. And sometimes, walking away is the most powerful move of all. So what really happened to Debra Winger? The answer is simple. She won. While Hollywood chased trends and box office receipts, Winger chased something far more elusive: self-respect. Her farm isn't a retreat, it's a headquarters. Her selective roles aren't comebacks, they're victory laps. And that shocking 2024 appearance, that wasn't a return. It was a reminder that the greatest stories aren't always told on screen, but lived in the quiet spaces between the spotlight. As for Hollywood, they'll keep chasing the next young starlet. But history will remember the woman who proved you don't need the system's permission to be legendary. The final scene of Debra Winger's story hasn't been written yet. But knowing her, it'll be on her terms, with Hollywood watching helplessly from the wings. The bright lights of Hollywood have a way of chewing up and spitting out even the most talented stars, but few stories are as tragic and ultimately triumphant as Debra Winger's. This is the shocking true story of how one of America's greatest actresses was pushed out of the industry she loved, only to emerge decades later as a living legend on her own terms. Our story begins in Cleveland, Ohio, where a young Mary Debra Winger was born in 1955 to a conservative Jewish family. From the start, she was caught between two worlds: the traditional life her family envisioned and the creative fire burning inside her. That fire nearly went out forever when, at just 17 years old, Winger suffered a horrific accident while working at an amusement park. Thrown from a truck, she woke up in the hospital with a traumatic brain injury, temporary blindness, and partial paralysis. Doctors warned she might never fully recover. But in that darkness, Winger made a promise to herself that would change everything. If she could walk again, she would chase her acting dreams no matter what. Against all odds, Winger not only recovered, but stormed into Hollywood with the intensity of someone who had stared death in the face. Her big break came in 1980's Urban Cowboy, where her electrifying performance opposite John Travolta announced the arrival of a major new talent. Directors raved about her once-in-a-generation ability to disappear into roles. But behind the scenes, Winger's uncompromising nature was already causing problems. She refused to play the Hollywood game, turning down vapid roles and speaking her mind regardless of consequences. The early 1980s should have been Winger's golden era. She earned 3 Oscar nominations before turning 30 for An Officer and A Gentleman, Terms of Endearment, and Shadowlands. But each triumph came with battles. Her feud with Richard Gere on Officer became legendary. Acting with a brick wall, while her clashes with Shirley MacLaine on Terms of Endearment included the infamous fart herd round Hollywood. Winger wasn't being difficult for its own sake. She was fighting for her artistic vision in an industry that expected women to be seen and not heard. By the mid-1990s, as Winger approached 40, the roles dried up. Not because her talent faded, if anything, it had deepened, but because Hollywood had no use for strong-willed women past a certain age. The scripts she was offered became insulting caricatures. In 1995, at the peak of her abilities, Winger made the shocking decision to walk away. No farewell tour, no press conference, just a quiet exit to a farm in upstate New York with her husband, actor Arliss Howard. For 15 years, Winger became Hollywood's ghost, a cautionary tale whispered about at industry parties. Then, in a twist no one saw coming, she began a quiet resurgence. Small roles in quality projects like Netflix' The Ranch showed the industry what they'd been missing. Her 2024 appearance, silver-haired, makeup-free, radiating hard-won confidence, broke the internet. This wasn't a comeback, it was a revelation. Winger had become something Hollywood couldn't control, a woman completely at peace with herself. Today, Winger's influence is everywhere. From the Me Too to the fight for equal pay, modern actresses stand on the foundation she helped build. Her story isn't just about Hollywood's cruelty, it's about the power of walking away on your own terms. The industry tried to erase Debra Winger. Instead, she became immortal. Not bad for a girl doctors said might never walk again. So what really happened to Debra Winger? The truth is, nothing happened to her. She happened to Hollywood. While the industry tried to force her into its narrow boxes, sexy ingenue, difficult diva, forgotten has been, Winger refused every label. She walked away not because she was broken, but because she was whole. And in doing so, she gave every outsider, every rebel, every woman told she was too much, the ultimate blueprint. You don't need permission to be great. You don't need approval to be free. Today, at 69, Winger still acts, but only when it excites her. She still speaks her mind, but only when it matters. And Hollywood? It still whispers her name, not as a cautionary tale, but as a ghost it can't shake. Because Debra Winger proved the most devastating truth of all. The system needs stars more than stars need the system. So if you ever wonder what became of that fiery young actress who disappeared, look closer. She's everywhere, in the fearless performances of today's leading ladies, in every woman who chooses integrity over applause. Debra Winger didn't just survive Hollywood, she outlived it, and that's not a tragedy, that's a triumph. What? Did you think of Debra Winger's story? Could Hollywood change for women like her today? Comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold Hollywood legends.